Okay, so as mentioned, the first recipe that I'm going to be doing will be from Leruth's, which was a restaurant run by Warren Leruth. Warren Leruth was the first chef that the Great Chefs series actually taped. And his restaurant was one of the premier restaurants in the New Orleans area for as long as it was open. He opened it, I want to say in the 70s. It closed in 1992, so before I ever went there, before I ever went to New Orleans. He was basically, he had a, let me go and read this actually. He had a passion for food and an astonishing acuity of taste and could easily distinguish flavors consisting of 1/1000th of a gram to a 15-ton batch of food. He grew up in New Orleans during the Depression. His mother, who was always a wonderful baker, basically encouraged him, and he wanted to either be a chef or a scientist. He actually studied physics at LSU and left in the late 40s to apprentice at Solari's, a French Quarter restaurant, French Quarter food emporium, which is apparently where Mr. B's is now. He also apprenticed in the kitchen of Galatoire's, Diamond Jim Moran's, and the Monteleone Hotel. He then joined the National Guard and attended their cook and bake school before being drafted into the Army, where he was a baker, mess hall supervisor, and eventually became the personal chef to General Mark Clark in Korea. After service, he landed a job as a bakery serviceman for Procter & Gamble and helped develop the Duncan Hines cake mix in their food and taste department. He then leveraged that to becoming a bulk oil and shortening salesman for Anderson Clayton in Shreveport. In 1956, he attended their mandatory bakery school that led to promotion and transfer to Irving, Texas, where he eventually ended up in the research and development department, learning how to scientifically formulate recipes. Although he received his first patent on stabilization of high oil content salad dressings. So he's actually responsible for the Seven Seas and Green Goddess and Creamy Italian and Thousand Island dressings for Anderson Clayton. But anyways, with the Seven Seas product line migrating from research and development to manufacturing, Leruth needed another outlet for his energy and ambition. His friend and mentor, European chef Ernest Birchie of restaurant Monsieur Pepe in Dallas, encouraged him to open a restaurant, which he did. He freely shared of his knowledge and helped him absorb the secrets of a successful European restaurant. In May of 1963, Chef Warren opened Leruth's restaurant in Sherman. If anybody's been to Sherman, Texas, it's kind of an unusual place to open a restaurant, but that's where he did it. And he followed that up by being the youngest chef ever elected to the Honorable Golden Toques. In 1965, Hurricane Betsy destroyed New Orleans. Chef Leruth closed and sold his restaurant to return to New Orleans and see how he could help rebuild. In 1966, he rebuilt and reopened his new restaurant, Leruth So Sorry, it was actually 1960s, not 1970s, on the west bank of New Orleans in Gretna, and he had a 25-year run, closing in 1991. Again, I was off by a year. Chef Leruth continued to run a food consulting business whose clients included Outback Steakhouses, Nestle, and Popeyes. So the biscuits are apparently his responsibility if you go to Popeyes. Anyways, so he appears in both books. So again, Great Chefs of New Orleans, Great Chefs of New Orleans, the sequel, right? Okay, he's the first chef in both of these. So let's look at what the recipes are here. So, okay. In the first book, shrimp remoulade. Not going to make that. I don't cook with shrimp here. Medallions of pork. Again, don't cook with pork, and I don't feel like substituting something else for pork. And Genoese with amaretto and chocolate. That sounds good. So that might be it. Let's try this one. Oh, here's a picture of them. So, again, it was basically like the premier restaurant to go to in the 70s and 80s. And I do know somebody locally in Houston who went there, and I guessed it. He was visiting a colleague of his who was into wining and dining people, and this guy took him to a restaurant, which he said he remembered crossing a bridge um, to go to it, and, uh, and I said, okay, so he said it was in kind of a house, and I said, I bet it was Leruth's. He said, yeah, that was it. So there you go. So, anyways, he really is kind of the godfather of modern um, New Orleans cooking. So we think of a lot of the things that we have as having been there forever, but really he was a big influence in a lot of it. Anyways, so the second one has oysters Belle Rive. I'm not doing oysters. Redfish a la Tamaro. Seafood specialty combining redfish and lobster. Well, I'm not cooking with lobster, so that's not going to happen. And cassata parfait torte. As much as I like cassata, I think I'm going to go with the chocolate. So, let's look through this recipe here. The chocolate amaretto Genoese. All right. I actually did look through this ahead of time, so I'm kind of cheating you guys on that a little bit. So, in a bowl, mix eggs and sugar, heat over hot water to 115 degrees, beating until doubled in volume. Sift flour and cornstarch together 3 times. Carefully fold the flour, cornstarch, and lemon rind into the egg mixture. Pour into greased and floured 9-inch cake pans. Bake at 425 degrees until set in spring. Remove from pan and cool on cake racks. But the amaretto and chocolate filling. Heat cream to 180 degrees. Stir in chocolate chips and remove from heat. Stir to melt, then chill overnight. Put half of the Genoese on a cake pan and sprinkle with half of the amaretto. Whip the cream mixture until stiff. Spread quarter of the mixture on the cake. Add top layer of cake and sprinkle with the remaining amaretto. Ice top and sides of cake with chocolate filling, reserving some of it to pipe through a pastry bag for finishing decorative touches. So, since I have to do have to basically set the chocolate ganache overnight in the fridge, I'm going to go and do that one first, actually. So I'll come back in a little bit. We'll see what happens. Okay, so here's the final product. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the fridge and chill it. Okay. Okay, so I'm about to start on the Genoese on the sponge, so that'll be fun. It's really pretty straightforward, basically eggs and sugar and flour and stuff like that. So anyways, I'll come back when it's done. Bye-bye. So this is the Genoese sponge. It's already been soaked in the amaretto. Actually, I used chestnut liqueur instead, for the most part. I'm only going to go with 1 layer. It's supposed to be 2 layers, but I can't get 2 layers out of this, so I'm going to only go with 1 layer. So that's about it. All right, I'll be back after it's covered, iced, and all that good stuff. All right, bye-bye. Okay, so here's the cake. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I tested the Genoese with amaretto and chocolate. It was okay. It wasn't great. I didn't. I had some issues with it. So, first of all, Warren Leruth died in 2001. So he's been dead for a little over 20 years. I didn't mention that before, so I probably should have mentioned that. His recipe is specific, and at the same time somewhat vague, so I found it actually kind of difficult to follow. So he has specific temperatures. So It starts out with in a bowl, mix eggs and sugar, heat over hot water to 115 degrees. Um, I don't I can't find our candy thermometer, so I had to kind of guesstimate. I really should have just gone and taken the bowl out to the hot tub and floated the bowl in there and beat it up there. But anyways, um, um, so yeah, and it says to basically do that until it's doubled in volume. Um, I had a difficult time getting it to double in volume. I did manage to do it though, but it didn't seem to hold that volume. So when I folded in the dry ingredients and put in the pan, it it only fit in one pan basically. So I only made a one layer cake. On top of that, it seemed to rise, but it didn't really. What it did was it bubbled up in the middle, so it basically formed a concave or convex shape that depending on which side you were looking at. Um, so that's kind of what happened with the sponge. Anyways, so I did manage to get it in, get everything else in. One of the issues I had with the chocolate filling was that it says to chill it overnight. Well, so I chilled it. And my idea of chilling it is to put in the freezer. So I put in the freezer. So I ended up with chocolate ice cream, basically. Um, and needed to go ahead and thaw that out a little bit, which was actually okay because, I had to wait for the cake to cool anyways. So I did that and whipped it again so it was stiff and held its form. Iced the cake, and that worked out just fine. Um, so you saw that, and then I went ahead and tasted it, and the amaretto comes through just fine. The chocolate comes through just fine. The cake tastes good. So there you have it, and that was it. So yep, nothing else to add on that one. All right. Anyways, see you next week.